My name is Ethan Davis, and I'm 16 years old. But let me tell you something, this town Willowbrook doesn't forget. It still whispers my name like I'm a ghost haunting street, even though I'm alive and walking. It's no small town, but it acts like one where everyone knows everyone's business, everyone smiles. So you'd think we're family, but they're snakes in the grass, that's what they are. And it's funny because that's what starts it all, the thing that crack every part of my life in two. I used to be a kid liked building things, watching birds with my binoculars at sunrise, getting lost in comic books. While my mom made waffle and syrup in the kitchen, she had this laugh that felt like breaking through ice-cold water into air after diving deep. She'd wake me up every morning with the same song, Hey Jude, like the boy was me. And I'd groan but smile and let her kiss my forehead before school. Life was quiet, not perfect, but safe, cozy, even in a crooked little two-story house on the edge of town that smelled like old wood glue and mothballs. Mom's cancer changed that. First her hair fell out, then she stopped laughing, then she stopped getting up too well every morning, became medication count. Every joke disappeared, replaced by muted conversations, with doctor's bills rustling on the table like dying leaves. I learned to rely on my best friend Nathan to make it all bearable. When Dad left us years ago, Nathan was my lifeline, playing video games with me through the long nights between chemo sessions. His house was always safe, a place filled with noise, parents who still kissed each other goodnight, stupid family dinners. I envied everything he had. Issa was the girl I loved, actually the girl who loved me. But I didn't realize it until half the chance was already gone. She was loud, bounced around Willowbrook with a smile sharp enough to ruin someone's day if they crossed her at the wrong moment. But she never crossed mine, not then, not until everything fell apart back when Mom was wasting away. I needed Nathan more than ever. I asked him if I could stay at his place for a week, because the hospital was just a different kind of prison. I couldn't breathe there. He said, of course, man. Yeah, come crash. Say no to school. Say yes to pizza, games, and couches. As long as you want. Let me guess what you're thinking, that Nathan didn't took something I'd owned, something that felt like mine. That's exactly what happened. I was gone barely 3 days when the rumors started. Hot whispers at the locker hallway, glances sharper than broken glass. By the time I got back from the hospital, Issa was already at Nathan's house, sleeping in his room, waking up to kiss him in school hallways. I don't know when it started, when she decided to trade our secret lunch dates and scratch line text messages for his smug face, laugh, and whispered lies. But what broke me most wasn't that either of them looked guilty when I went to ask Nathan why. He said, it's not even that deep, bro. She made the first move. You weren't even here, bastions of your face. And Issa looked me in the eyes and said, I missed him, like I hadn't existed at all, like my heart wasn't in the room, like I wasn't the one who bagged groceries to give Mom painkillers. They made me feel invisible, something worse than hatred, something colder. They made me feel nothing, and maybe that's the worst revenge anyone could do to me, make me disappear. But here's the thing, this story goes deeper than some cheesy fight over a girl. What messed me up the most was how they did it, with these grins like they hadn't left a cavity in my chest where my lungs used to be. I should have smashed Nathan's face when I saw him next week at football practice with his unstoppable arrogance about their new high school love story, Stained B. Instead, I kept walking and focused on my mother. Turns out that wasn't the only thing I'd need to walk away from. Let's talk about the group. The 4 of us used to rule the school. That's bull, but we were known, respected, sometimes even liked. Then Nathan came in with Issa by his side, and suddenly the group became something else, something with a different hierarchy. No one said it clearly, but the lunch table shifted, phone calls stopped occurring, Instagram posts erased me from the frame. I didn't matter anymore. I texted Kyle once. He was my best pal since childhood, the one who still worked at Jason's Deli but let me steal turkey scraps when he was done cleaning. I texted him, hey man, missed you at the chem final. Everything good? The reply was seconds, like he had been staring at his phone, hoping I wouldn't ask. Yeah, just busy, man. You know, they're doing their thing, that's what he called them. The new crew that forgot me. The boys that shared my locker's hallway were now strangers, with tablets full of shared memes I wasn't in, and parties that overlapped with my coughs into pillow because Mom was sleeping in the next room, and sometimes even that felt too loud. Time slides after that, and so does she. At night I sit in my room, my limbs like bricks, watching rain slap the roof during Memorial Day storms. That's when Mom dies. Just like that, she goes. Chemo stops working. I don't get a chance to say goodbye because Nathan convinced me during Mom's final week that maybe I should have space, that she probably needed peace and I was a burden. He said it with compassion, the kind of delicacy you usually fake. Give her rest, man. That's what he called it. Rest. So when the phone call came, Aunt Lisa's screaming because no one else was nearby. Mom was already cold in her bed. Missed 3 last breaths I spent watching water drop from the corner of my ceiling, wondering which side of the wall was worse from the noise. That's when my world turns to rue. I walked through town with hunched shoulders, remembering how all the places changed meaning. Nathan's house became my exile, mom's cancer clinic became my graveyard. The spot at the bleachers where Issa used to kiss my neck, it wasn't a secret anymore, it didn't belong to us. At the funeral, they show up. Nathan and Issa with linked hands and matching somber clothes, as if pain was something they could reproduce on command. They don't speak, but their presence stings more than the rain or the mulch soaked in the coffin. Would the others come too? My old friends Lee, Kyle, Micah, the same faces who stopped answering calls, started joking online about my sad boy vibe while my mom was choking on silence. They came in suits, flowers in hand, and watched while strangers buried the woman who made me better than them. Moral: they all fall apart right. Toxic people collapse under their own weight like towers built from paper. Lee is pregnant by some guy no one likes named Owen by summer's end. Kyle gets arrested early fall, getting caught in a scam he helped set up at the deli. And Micah loses scholarship after missing a drug test with his nerve shot everywhere. But Nathan and Issa, they were something else. They stayed golden, like they wear immunity visible to the eyes. They still hang around town with smirks crowding their face like mold. They started this real estate hustle, flipping rundown houses to investors, funding college plans faster than events should progress. And I'm standing, working part-time job, bagging groceries, watching them ripple through lives like they matter. Let me tell you something though, it wasn't enough. Watching them move on around me while I clawed at a broken clock telling me it'd heal, it wasn't enough. Because maybe their toxin realized it wasn't about waiting for them to fail. It was about making sure they felt the same thirst I did now. So I start watching them, window gazing, watching Curtis sway from third-floor bathroom light during school nights, keeping eyes on Nathan's rotation between group parties and house flip jobs. When world says he should have hit his limit, but he hasn't cracked. I want to believe time beats them. I really want to believe it's all gonna cost them one day, but if it doesn't, if they keep walking through all this without having even one shadow on their skin, then I'm gonna have to do something about it. The house they flip is more than just a construction site. It's the house where a fire broke out 2 years back. Lost an entire family in the black winds and dust. Old Grayson House, only 3 walls surviving the flames. Nathan boasts about it like it's something natural, what he calls picking up the pieces, though the townsfolk mumble that every house he buys comes with some unlucky story someone's already scraped away from before. Advisor people, they love it because he's young, charming, doesn't charge more than $300,000, and they get charming old wooden houses come alive like bones long dead. But guess what? They're empty inside, not dangerous, but dead empty as a hollowed out heart. Here's the thing though, this isn't revenge merely by watching them fail. Not anymore. I become someone else when I start realizing the gravity. My eyes no longer search the beach for birds, but stalk dripping fountains of harm. I weave into threads of thought, not days spent in hospital hallways. One night, I follow Nathan home, track his blurry shadow as he walks into the center of town to talk to someone in a dark coat, involved in risky things, people selling confessions or bullets. I follow him to that house, the Grayson House, the place where gutters rasping against wood and boards whisper like forest animals dragging their claws against the walls. I walk in, not because I'm ready, because I need to know where I'm headed. I get caught quickly, too naive to dodge emotions sneaking into my plan and truth. I wasn't even planning to do something, I just wanted to feel what they felt. Nathan found me. He dragged me out like soaked trash, threw me into the dirt, and laughed like I'd told a joke. Does me getting revenge sound funny? Because I didn't think it through, but watching him flash gold shade teeth, I wanted to rip them free the way they took my life. After that, I start changing rooms of my house, swapping art with maps. One photo framed Johnny Cash becomes a poster on crosshair, aiming for Nathan. Does everything become twisted? Couple months, a year, 10 years. Now we're getting ahead of ourselves. My first real effort fails so hard, makes mom's death better. How? Fix plan, specify steps to trap them for stupid lies. They told the police when I called, pretending anonymously, that Grayson House was being broken into, knowing it would bring cops, then leave posters, messages. I know what you did. But Issa smiled during the police investigation and answered each question with practiced guiltlessness. Nathan touches her hand and tells the officer not to worry, baby, the cleanup hasn't started yet. Of course, it's empty. If only he knew what crushed walls surrendered to once the sun turned off. Now they're wondering who tried to run scare tactics. Luckily, they think it's a joke, but not for my heart. My hands start shaking every time I'm near them. It's not just pain, but a hunger, something else sitting on my chest. I'm starting to realize revenge isn't about letting them fail, it's against me too. Because every move I make feels like someone else. Last night, I carved their faces into my forearm with a pocket knife. When Mom pressed her fingers into mine as her cancer seized her hand and made it tremble, she would have hated what's happening to me, but maybe that makes me worse. Because I stopped listening to her urban voice, muttering cries for peace. So that night, as I cut Issa's last name from my phone, entire name vanished from my playlist, I wrote the raw version of what I need them to feel. It's not rage. It's something more subtle. When you lose someone, you realize life is a long conversation with them, and the silence that comes after is betrayal beyond words. I was betrayed in two ways, and now I understand what I can't get back by waiting. So even if they seem to have won something, I'm going to prove that they lost everything by taking it. I make plans shaping smoothly like a stone and hold it close. But this isn't the end, because this part of my story stops where things start getting real, where I stop thinking revenge as something passive and wake up to a brand world where silence buys nothing but scars as I erase mine one cut at a time. Wait a minute, the house they flipped, it's still standing despite fire. The new house isn't merely for profit or student debt. They built something in the street, bunch of burned homes making fires of their own. Nathan once told me they created a club, a business running numbers, flipping houses for insurance fraud, not renovation, but illusion, one that vanished, flame and screaming, when the groups got investigated. A new project was started, they call it the Hollows, and suddenly my old plan feels naive, like child's hand caught in a bear trap. I realize the skin of their lives is rigged against anyone other than them. They don't stumble under their mistakes like others, they float rocks in a lake made of other people's loss. But let me clarify, it's not enough to wait for someone else to destroy them. That's not mine. Revenge belongs to me like breath. Sometimes I choke on it, but I claw it back in anyway. No, not choking, swallowing, and right now I'm getting ready to take my next bite. But you know the best part of watching someone drown? They think no one notices until the water climbs to their neck, and suddenly it's too late to scream. Everyone dies quiet eventually. I'm just being patient this time. The failed break-in at Grayson House cements what I've always known. I'm not smart enough for this. Nathan laughs while the cop writes me a citation for trespassing and vandalism. He stands on the front porch with one hand on his hip and the other gripping Issa's fingers like a trophy, while I beg the cop not to call Aunt Lisa. They let me go with a warning, but the town already knows. Suddenly my part-time bagging job becomes a risk, and I'm out in 2 days, replaced by some chipmunk cheek junior who hasn't lost anything worth stealing. By then the town's grittiest gossip channels are reusing my trampled dignity to fill their comments. Typical Ethan trying to wreck his own community, cuts his arm like some edgelord. Kyle's DM makes it feel official. I heard you're doing this to cover your own cracks. My hands vibrate in public now. When I pass Nathan and Issa behind the high school fence, I feel dizzy, like the world just shrank to a single fist-tight moment. They whisper about my shadows, the way I sleep in alleyways now because Aunt Lisa snapped when I burned her spare couch with cigarette tips and 1,000-yard stares. Her words still crack through my chest. You think grieving means burning life around you, Ethan? That's not love, that's laziness. I don't answer. Instead, I start a poem in my head. It's all I can write lately. Scratchy things dividing pain into stanzas. There's one for Issa's crooked laugh, one for Nathan's camera lens glare whenever he catches me tailing him to show he sees, one for the police department that tucks my face into a red-flagged file like expired milk. Then things get worse. Moments where I don't remember driving or arrive somewhere soaked in sweat miles from where meant to be. First blackouts begin the night Mom's ashes scatter into a wind I can only describe as empty. Then the fridge gets spilled with rot and I swear I filled it last week. My texts delete themselves mid-sentence. The cops nearly catch me splicing security feeds before the next Hollows investigation. I forget I ever was someone who watched birds. I stop sleeping entirely. Spend nights squinting at photos on a darkened bathroom floor, circles of light on the ceiling morphing into Nathan's face. 2 weeks before the anniversary of her death, Aunt Lisa stops answering the door when I knock. From her porch I leave a bouquet of dead dandelions curled in dog food, can spraying glass to the windowsill. That's when I realize the Hollows owns the town more than footsteps disappear from my doorsteps. They've shifted blame. When the deli furnace fails and Micah's family nearly burns out, The insurance company points fingers at the owner's aging systems, not Nathan's renovations subsidized by under-the-table arson. Then Kyle's old probation crackles when he warns me days before his second jail stint. They've got someone. Cops tip notes into their hands. Then Lee's rebound ex's Instagram post shows her newborn cradled in his arms while Issa's profile displays a party under the Grayson House's gutted shell with garlands of fire tape draped like bridal veils. The worst is Alex, their grinning intern. Not even 20, recruited from college with bright eyes he wears like a sales brochure title. He follows Nathan around holding toolboxes but glances at me strange sometimes during these encounters. Like when I accidentally turn a corner and collide with them on Main Street. He flinches. Nathan shoos me with a grin. Go home, bro. You're cold, sober, creepy. After this, the old plan books vanish. They stash their files digitally. Tails drop deserted as my cash dwindles. I rob coin slots from Aunt Lisa's laundry machines too, but spend it on coffee tastes bitter because my survival feels like betrayal now. Then the final collapse. Act Three's wedge that jams itself into my throat. Nathan surprises me staggering from an all-night snooping job on their new spree. 4 derelict homes on Chestnut Lane all tagged as under maintenance when I knock on neighbors' doors and ask for sockets of warmth. The figure stops breathing when I find him. Officially, it's an accident. Nathan's pickup cuts the tires, but he told authorities he didn't see the pole scramble up and twist. Issa claims she heard him talking in his sleep about putting the next fire in better spots. The cops aren't even paranoid because they've invested in a Hollow's flip themselves. Kyle calls me from his cell block in a wheezing, breathless whisper. He's still watching, you know, always smiling. The call drops before I can ask who he refers to. That night I stand at the shore watching real birds slice the waterline with screeches like broken rubber. I wait for one to catch on fire. When it doesn't, I scream wordless until I taste blood and collapse clawing into sand the way my mother clawed into fabric before the tubes stopped regulating her breath. Here's the thing though, this isn't enough. Not loss, not silence. Not the way I eat a stale Pop-Tart next morning, unread the graffiti Nathan sprayed on my trash bin that reads, "Ghosts eat thinner than you. I don't need revenge anymore. I need meaning the way my mother needed her final breath as I held her hand and said nothing." Act 4 starts with Alex, a voice bleeding through a crack. He finds me at the shuttered library night. I spot him wandering its back end with a file box reflecting headlight flares in his pupils. I corner him inside an electrical cab half-rotting behind the textbooks. His handshake trembles like I'm too cold to touch. They fake structural failures to delay findings. He blurts first words not from fear, but a kind of defiance still wet with loyalty. He begged for the truth since he joined one spring backed by a golden scholarship tied to small-town charity gala seat reservations and free internship credits. Then the first fire happened. They didn't even hide it. The Olson homestead, estimated century-old insulation lit because Issa found mold in the stone cracks. All of them laughed. Alex didn't. That's all he shares that night and probably all he needs to say for me to hear the shift in his voice, the way our mutual enemies taught him this tone of joyless resolve. The turning point is later in his apartment. Blueprints strew the tables, charts of wiring modifications he flagged wrong. They designed these exact sections to collapse. You want to know who your mom was really fighting? They treated her hospice visits like background checks for eviction. Follow the grants she sought. Citizen Cella Bridge funding. They torpedoed them. That's the match. I start small, biting back into their web with corrected tools shaped right, online and offline with precision. Alex leaks their waste lists. I compile them anonymously, blowing up town forums with cold facts. Meanwhile, I watch Nathan panic during city council meetings, sweating through polo shirts as residents start asking, "Did we really approve that?" Issa grows cagey, tailing him, sometimes wearing sunglasses at night which can't mask the puffing eye veins. They're cracking and enough's never enough, but now it's tangible. Real enough that I sleep sometimes. Something opens. The final pivot comes one midnight in my makeshift sleep zone behind the mechanic's shop where I traded weed and stolen pills for space. Alex texts me a scrap definition message. It reads, Olson address cabinets include matches, birthday markers, not labels, indications of patterns before flame plus sands, real time, do it somewhere watched. Suddenly I see everything soaked in inevitability. Their moves are ritual symbols they've tattooed onto the town. Fire is social currency. They even set matches early in the daylight so footprints fade with sunrise. I'm not targeting flesh anymore. I centralize the truth. Coworkers at the grocer's stop tossing me bread rolls when they hear whispers of my surveillance videos showing Nathan's flips with time lapses that obvious some ignored structural gaps from week to week. When parents at the park scoot kids away from my bench-sitting form, I show them the scans of fire history charts buried in the files. Small parts of town start to melt. Emerges from ash, me changed. Still not moral maybe, but sharpened. Not just cuts on my wrist, but calibrations of strategy. Alex starts calling me, handler in texts. I make him keep on revising the database so it's less spell of theory, but case files of actual arson. The key comes through one leak, June 15th, 8 days from now. Hollows opens the final project, a converted orphanage with century-old oak ceilings and stained glass that's been sold thrice in secret. Nathan's bankrolling a ribbon cut in the manner of a serial killer displaying trophies. I arrive with gloves hide the match supply and start walking familiar halls, knowing Tom Grayson snapped the gas pressure valves a decade back on first renovation orders. All houses link back to Nathan under cousins or stepmothers or ghost lines. The blueprint becomes a map not for escape but entrapment, still not confessing to what's coming. But at dawn on the orphanage pad, drive the tension-type moment where balls scatter walled dogs and resignations circle the mayor. Act 4 closes as I clutch the source ledger tucked deep in my waistband. The town's heartbeat isn't full or finished yet. It pulses slower now, like questioning what muscle it had missed, no longer hunted. The power shifts density when you reshape stone into something heavier. I breathe again, unlike my mother's last weak exhale. I learn the taste of patience, then add revenge as seasoning. Some call it justice, I don't. But tomorrow when fire licks the orphanage gate, yet reveals nothing under the PA system, porks Nathan's held soaked flame history, hidden in janitorial supply rooms, coupled with video scraps. Alex stitches its truth. I'll exhale. Not victory, but air reload back into my lungs. Watch Nathan and Issa shout across town halls. Watch them slip bricks under their feet. They won't see the doorway either. They won't know until smoke zones sweep familiar patterns. Not my breath they'll choke on, but someone else's. By midnight the air tastes like gasoline and wintergreen mouthwash, strange clinical bite that coats your throat. I follow Tom Grayson's faded pen strokes on the orphanage blueprints held under my coat like holy scripture and match the worn path to their pressure valve. The gas hiss is softer here than in the preliminary sketches Alex smuggled from the municipal void. He's waiting at the dome's rear with a camera cradled to his chest, lens primed to jack the whole charade into Town Hall's public access feed. Our code breaks the streaming password leaked via his intern chat logs still warm. He types precise and watches the fire marshal arrive necking a donut with Twilight's aftertaste sugared through his fingers. They're all synced, Alex mutters. Once it hits the north stairwell, the live footage won't scrub clean. We clasp hands too long and he leaves me with a thinned whisper, "Don't burn yourself out." The ignition comes effortless. Pressure valves jerked hot off schedule by my loops through the basement's bone-dry conduit. It flares low at first, a respiratory thing, the way my mother's breath had thinned those final days. Residents gather outside, lawsuits spliced into their gripes now that Ethan's dossier swells our sixth den of public comment. Nathan arrives later than expected, trailed by Issa in a sequined abundance, mayoral handshakes fumbling on their way past her silver heels. He opens the orphanage door and the stained glass fractures like recovering lungs. He doesn't notice the smoke clinging yet. Neither does the mayor, who christens his speech with a bottle of Merlot 2 minutes in. I jump the signal per Alex's tweaks, an autoplay hijack looping every prior flame building's collapse. The footage swells like a multi-tab nightmare as limbs kick outside while hollow fire eats acre by acre. Nathan squints at the dome's projections, but his feet keep still, internally grafting something on a micro-expression level. Then Issa yells, "He's manipulating it, Dad," pointing, but cam motion has the evidence flipped slantwise so everyone watches their prior insurance debates go up. They lit every room right. Micah's furnace overlay matches their arson schematic. Lee's honeymoon phase with her jacked crib collapses to a lit sequence of tune-up records they forged. The crowd churns like a peacekeeping force turned mob. Nathan tries shouting, something about saboteurs and reverse spy operations, but his own ledger slips in final acts. Each renovation tag erased his alchemized losses. The mayor hiccups his wine droplet by droplet. Then Lee's ex emerges holding his sleeping infant live tweet feed blazing overhead. This is where she burned, crying as the smoke began. The town rings sudden as my hands again. Those donors and neighbors and school events now stranded mute under the overhead collapse. Nathan's swipe at me at City Council replays too, transposed over his current scream. He lunges at the screen and points at me crammed against the candlelit balustrades. He's the one. He howls into the oxygen of smoke detectors he'd personally removed. But the first responders are already here, their jostling gear monogrammed by NASA training manuals folded neatly beneath their GoPro vests. They pry Nathan to the floor like seized game pieces. Issa flails beside them, camera pulsing her name into searchable eternity. They charge 4 hours later. I pocket Tom Grayson's original Valve schematic printed light and Lacey to avoid linkage. Kyle texts from his cell block. Heard it on the local radio, even the guards laughing. I respond nothing. Feeling slaughtered in the void between actions and aftermath. Act 5 ends with Nathan's ankle chains jerking through a deporting patrol car. The mayor calls for review. Haven't seen Aunt Lisa's unbolted door yet since she skipped town just before the trial air. Birds don't scarecast my nerves anymore. My hands hold no scissors to inject memories into talons. By morning, the first news outlet runs the footage. By noon, a math professor discounts the flame pairing as statistically comparable to serial saboteur mapping. By night, the townsfolk rotate their lanterns toward the mayor's office hunting for matching ledger names overlaid online, a GitHub analysis tool he funds with Ethan's family Amazon token. Act 6 is untouched sleep, my hands stenciled immobile. I bike to work beneath softened dawn, feigning the grocer's new bagger shift, but don't speak till people recognize the live footage as balm. Drivers wave. Micah stops me for coffee and orders double the hazelnuts. Municipality flips city budgets next week. He tips to my impulse purchase of dry soup packets stacking shelves. We need to ask a lot of neighbors now. Your info's guiding hikes. Alex leaves the cafe job and starts an independent rebuild clinic. Patients cycle through us like wind through Respironics. He doesn't ask about the match inventory I recovered. I note his pupils dripping color when arson victims get mentioned. We don't talk of her, of my mother. We water plants in silence. The final divorce of Nathan's conviction sans litigation comes unevenly. They finesse their trial to December but storm the bones already of their crew. Issa exits early, swaps testimonies with the district attorney to reduce her prosecutable tracks. Someone finds Christy Hollow's barrel in the old Grayson crawl space, but her ghost's tucked safe behind prenups and discretionary wealth. Ethan keeps birdwatching near the dock, binoculars tempered with Kevlar tape by Alex himself. When flocks arrive on solstice, it's silent. No smoke, no paper trail mining the marsh. His mother's bloom in irises now, each petal square grafted with cloth from her hospital blanket. He freezes till the ocean exhales. Then he follows it till silence fills the pocket where her voice used to rattle crates in sleep. The conclusion comes quill clean. A skeleton formed from structural edits too exact to have been attributed simply. No one says revenge. They deduce justice via spreadsheets and subpoenaed warning labels. When Nathan curses my reversal on jail visits, I grip CPSV returns instead, the ones matching my mother's hospice denials to their infrastructure gross edits. The bench outside Issa's vacated condo. Ethan don't sit there. He carries toasters to glass pub partitions where the Hollows boys used to swap cash for coding Gauntlet bluff. No smoke, but sometimes the ghosts twinge. Then one dawn, the most scriptural thing, a bird lands on his thumb, small, salt-tipped. It doesn't ignite. He laughs like Pop-Tart memories had spoiled when he originally tasted Betrayal. Now his breath homestores solvents. No one's chasing anyone. Just the iridescent oil pooling like latter-day intentions. The child at Lee's 6-month wake cries same as her newborn, left him a balloon yesterday in calculus colors. He let it escape down Main Street where Nathan's first fire sieve crept along the tire tracks. No one's imposing blame anymore. I reframe grief like a kitchenette renovation, not beauty alone, but design made for recurrent meals, wanting food and knowing where to plant crops oneself. I sit on Maine's flanked sidewalk, now taunting nothing. Passing teens gawk. I just nod, say, bring matches, don't light them yet. Then they leave faster than Nathan's truck met its pole, and Ethan, for the first time in runtime traceable cadence, doesn't squirm, reloads the silence, keeps watching real birds without checkmarks or portents. One turns up late or dead, but no burn traces, just time. You age into someone else's safety eventually, even if the wind howls like someone missing.